In this lesson I'm gonna take a C jazz blues and I'm gonna go over how you can create 3-note triad voicings that work really well for comping or soloing on the blues. Using 3-note voicings is really practical. You're very flexible to make variations, and you can also easily react to whatever is happening in the melody or whatever the soloist is playing. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a chorus of triad voicings on a C blues, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how I find these voicings and show you some of the possibilities if you start making inversions of the triads. So as you can tell, I'm not playing the rhythm that I've written down because I've just written down the voicing as a whole note, but I'm playing some more rhythms just to illustrate a little bit better how you can actually use this material quite well, and even with this simple exercise play something that sounds really good as a comping for a C blues. So the way I construct these voicings is quite simple. If we take a C7 like this one, which is just a C7 without any extensions, then if I take away the C, then I have these 3 notes, and you might recognize that as being an E diminished triad in the second inversion. So if I make that into a normal inversion or a root position, then you get E, G, E flat here, and then the B flat is of course lower. So, and it's the same idea with the other chords. So a D minor would be an F major triad with a D in the bass, or an E half diminished. If I take away the E, I have a G minor triad with an E in the bass. The only place where I'm not using this approach is on the dominant with a flat 9. So if you remember that this C7 is an E diminished with a C in the bass, and we look at this C7 flat 9, and we take away the C, then this is a B flat diminished triad. So for the dominant with a flat 9, I'm using the diminished triad from the 7th. I'm only doing this because then I get the flat 9 in there, and it works. To practice finding these triads, let's just go over some inversions and talk about some of the different chords that are in this progression. So the first one's a C7. So C7 was an E diminished triad, and that would be these inversions. For the F7, so F7 is of course an A diminished with an F in the bass, so that would be these inversions. And for the D minor 7, so this is D minor 7, and that's a D, and that's under an F major triad, so that's these inversions. And G7, well G7 that's a B diminished, so that would be these. And then we get to the F sharp diminished, and F sharp diminished is a little bit of a special case. If we look at the notes of F sharp diminished, then the notes we want to have in the chord, well the C is the one we kind of want to leave out. So if I take because that's going to be already, like the F sharp diminished is resolving to the C7, so we don't need the C. So if I take that out, like this, then I have a E flat diminished triad. So actually it's again the diminished triad found on the diminished 7th of the F sharp diminished, and that would be these inversions. So the point with this is an F sharp diminished has 4 notes, and the note that we don't really need is the C, because that's going to be, it's in the F7 that's before it, and it's also going to be in the C7, so we don't really need that one. And we really want to have like the E flat, the A, and especially in this case also the F sharp, I think. And then we get the C7 flat 9, which was of course a B flat diminished, so that's this. and the G7 flat 9. So a G7, the 7th of G7 is F, and an F diminished triad inversions, that would be this. And then E half diminished. So E half diminished is of course a G minor triad over an E. So the inversions would be this. And I think when you play these triads, you can probably recognize that, like, that this is an E half diminished, or maybe this one when you're just playing the top part of it. So in that way you can relate it to chord voicings you probably already know. So as you can tell, I left out some of the chords in the previous example. So maybe try and figure those out yourself. It's a good exercise to already try and think like this and start thinking about what are the notes in the different chords. And how can I make different kind of voicings and figure out the triad inversions and really use it like that. So given the examples that I already went over, figuring out the G minor and the two variations on the A7 shouldn't be too difficult for you. The next thing we need to talk about is how to make some variations, because of course you can play a lot already with your inversions, but you can actually already make some small melodies just using these voicings. And this is sort of simple. You need to sort of sit and figure out how to work on it a bit, but the idea is really simple. If you look at the C7, then I'm expecting that, I'm actually assuming that you already know that a C7 is the 5th of F, and that F major would be sort of the scale you want to play around this C7. And that means that if you know your C7 on the B string, then you can sort of make small variations just starting with the chord or one of the triad inversions, and then just try some of the neighboring notes. So if I do that for the C7, it could be something like. So really just simple, just try and get a little bit familiar with how it is to play these variations, and just think of them as being, now we have a C7, and then you start adding another melody on top of it, but you're keeping the core of it. You need to play the original chord probably once in a while, but once you get used to it, it's quite simple. And since we're using these triad-based voicings, then even though it's going to move around on the neck, a lot of the stuff is going to be similar. So this is of course going to be the same for the G7 and for the F7 as well. And just try it out for the different voicings and start working on it like that. And then the last thing I'm going to do here is just going to go over chorus, where I'm using this approach to play through the C blues. So that was a chorus using this approach. As you can tell, you get some voicings that are really easy to play, but at the same time you can really lay down a solid comping that's really clear, and you can vary it a lot and get some interesting melodies going in your comping. That's what I like about this approach, and also something I really use a lot. And that's probably the main reason, because I'm able to interact with the people that I'm playing with, which is something that I find really important when I'm playing jazz. If this is the first time you see one of my lessons, then you can of course subscribe to my channel. I publish a new lesson every Thursday, and I've been doing this for a little over 2 years, so there's already really a lot of lessons on my channel. If you want to download a PDF of the examples that I went over in this lesson, then you can go to my website. In the article that's accompanying this lesson, there's a PDF download of all the examples, so you can study it away from the lesson, or away from the video at least. If you're on my website, you can also subscribe to my newsletter. That's a way to keep up to date with what is going on if I'm playing somewhere or recording something new or publishing a new lesson in my web store. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions or anything that you want to tell me, then one way to do that is to leave a comment on the video. I try to get back to everybody, so if you have suggestions for topics or questions, then that's a good way to communicate with me. Another way is to connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So connect with me there and ask me any questions, or ask me if I want to do a lesson of something. If you have an idea, then let me know there. So that's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.